in case you're in the States, the way things work out in the UK in January often makes it my favourite month on the film calendar. For whatever reason, all the American films which are up for Oscar contention are usually dumped on us all in one go, in 1 month. But on top of that, the British always have a jolly good stab at making at least one class film each year. Always from working title, 9 times out of 10 a biopic on one of our country's most influential people. 10 times out of 10 it's about triumph over adversity, and 11 times out of 10 likely to be voted as preferable for Best Picture than some film about unlikable people or a more complicated subject matter. And I hope it doesn't sound like I'm being sarky. I don't mean to be. I used to think, and I still do in a lot of ways, that the British film industry is a joke, and we only seem to be capable of making one film a year, and it's this one. But if we're counting from when Oscar season is over, which is, going back to last year's pictures like, obviously, The Imitation Game, which is a really strong, tense, emotional thriller, and also Paddington, which I don't think is any kind of classic, but I certainly do think it deserves to be nominated for its technical craft, cinematography, the special effects, production design. It's as beautifully made a film as anything Hollywood had to offer in 2014. I think it deserves to be mentioned. And now we have The Theory of Everything, which will certainly be mentioned for Eddie Redmayne's performance as Stephen Hawking, and deservedly so. But I do think that this film is the weakest of the three I've just mentioned, because for the most part, Mark Kermode calls these TV movies not even movies, because there's very little to distinguish this as a film for big screen entertainment. I certainly agree with him in this case. This is a standard autopilot biopic, but you're supposed to feel bad for saying that because it has this truly brave and amazing performance from its leading actor, and it's a transformative job from Eddie Redmayne. Let me see if I can break it down this way for you folks. Maybe you'll understand. I've always felt personally that no matter, even if you know someone and are very close to someone who may be disabled, how is it possible for someone without disability to truly appreciate it or emulate it? And emulating it for an acting performance has to be so much harder, because how could you not be self-conscious of what you're doing, what people are going to think, whether you think it's going to come off as ludicrous or offensive? And Stephen Hawking is the kind of guy who has, as we've just been talking about, he has parodied himself. He's made jokes about himself and does so all the time. So it's not just that he's of regular cultural significance. He has also entered pop culture. I know that sounds silly, but he has. So Redmayne's got a really tough job to pull off. He pulls it off. I don't know how he pulls it off. I think it's a very brave performance. As the motor neuron disease takes its toll, of course, Hawking's, not just his limbs, his ability to walk, his ability to do anything with his limbs, his ability to basically function, of course also his speech becomes more and more affected, to the point that he has the ability to speak full sentences, and you can feel that the sentences are perfectly formed in his head, but when they're transmitted, when they come out of the mouth, they're practically unintelligible. And I thought about that a lot, because as filmmakers, of course, you're in complete control of dialogue as much as you're in control of any other aspect of the picture. So it has to be a conscious choice and a brave choice to go through, how many takes of a line reading that Eddie Redmayne does, and pick one where it is specifically unclear, but you treat it as a normal piece of dialogue. You don't get anyone to repeat it. You just have the characters and the plot reacting to it as if it were clear as day. And it's a strange choice, but it's a brave choice. It's a legitimate choice. Even so, like I say, it's fairly run-of-the-mill for the most part. I'm almost tempted to say that if you've seen the trailer, you've seen the film, because the trailer does paint a story of love conquers all, and how the love of Stephen's life, played by Felicity Jones, she stood by his side through everything, even when everyone said he wouldn't survive more than 2 years into his condition. But what does redeem it a bit is what happens in the third act when the film really reveals what it's been about the entire time. I am going to have to blow this, but basically, this isn't a film about marriage. This is a film about a divorce. This is about a breakup. There's a line
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, sorry about that, folks. I mean, but you know what I'm saying.
I don't want to hear it, Phil. I don't want to. I want to look on Wikipedia to find out what happens.
Cover your ears, then, bitch. I'm going to tell the folks at home. I mean, I say that though because obviously, you can assume that everyone out there knows who Stephen Hawking is, knows that he wrote this book, and knows that he's very, very successful because of that. But you don't know necessarily what's going on in his private life. I personally have no interest in even famous people's private lives. So, frankly, I had no idea about his marital history. So it was actually a surprise to me watching the movie. There's a line in the trailer where Stephen's father says to Felicity Jones's character, "This is going to be a very heavy defeat." In the context of the trailer, you think it's simply about the disease, but by the end of the film, I felt it was referring to the marriage, because she isn't some saint-like, faultless figure who can endure anything and has eyes for nobody but her husband. You know, she's got a career too. She's got things that she wants to focus some time on. She's raising him, and she's raising a family of 2 children. She doesn't want to be Stephen's carer. She does get feelings for another man. And Stephen's a normal person. He's selfish. He has eyes for another woman who starts looking after him. And eventually, at the end, they just, in a very, normal, down-to-earth way, they just decide that they've tried their best, and they have loved each other, but they just can't continue because they're not happy. So they break up at the end, and that part was interesting to me. And true enough, we're talking about real life here, but if that element of the story wasn't there, then the film would not be recommendable to me. And it would be a lot easier to probably just end it at, an earlier point where he becomes a doctor or whatever it might be, or, when he says, I'm going to write a book, whatever it might be, or when he discovers his theory. The part of the film, of course, is that he changes his theory on the nature of existence several times and has done. I'm going to give it a mild recommendation because it's a British picture, so I guess we have to support them. But it's definitely a film which decides to tell the definitive story of one of our greatest minds, a superlative human being in many ways, and then brings him down to a relatable human level. It's The Last Temptation of Hawking.
Is that a pun about him being in a wheelchair?
I guess. I'm going to hell anyway for the aliens.
I expected more, Bill.
Yes. Well, I'm a terrible human being. Anyway, so I'll recommend that one. Yeah, give it a go. But if you've got a choice in the rental queue between that and The Imitation Game, go for The Imitation Game. No question about.
So is Eddie gonna win the Oscar? I don't think he's going.
No, he's not, because he's in Jupiter Ascending. So
I'm looking forward to that movie.
All I can remember every time I see the trailer is him. As it's a good job he's in the Theory of Everything, because I don't judge performances by trailers, but man, the ham that is coming off, he is emitting radio waves of ham just in the trailer. I will harvest 1,000,000 planets before I let her take it from me. And all that kind of stuff.
That's pretty good.
I know. And there's a bit where he's screaming on the floor, kill her! And that kind of thing. I just don't know what he's doing there. Well, he's being directed, of course, by the Wachowskis. So we'll see. Look, I like the Wachowskis. I'm pretty sure I'm going to like Jupiter Ascending. I'm just not sure I'm going to like him in it.